to everyone who's watching. My name is Laura. I work at Aeroclass, and today we're going to have another talk with one of our lectors. So thanks a lot for joining us. This pandemic has changed our concept of work, actually, how we work and where we work and all the things that might have changed in some ways can stay there forever. But there are a few things that remain the same, and those are skills that we use in our everyday life. During a crisis, and this pandemic has not been very easy, communication and leadership gain more importance. And it's no different in aviation. And if we're talking about communication and leadership in aviation, I think our guest, Hector Sandoval, is the man worth listening to. So Hector, thanks a lot for joining us.
Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to all the team at Aeroclass for making this journey very enriching and possible.
Great stuff. I think we're going to have a great conversation. Obviously, we're going to talk about many other things, including what your course is going to be about. And if anyone's interested, they can then visit our website and learn more. We're also going to talk about Hector's experience, just to kind of see how he got to the place where he is right now. So if everyone's ready, if you're Hector ready, I think we can start at the very beginning then, and just kind of let everyone know how you got into aviation and how did it come to your life.
I was thinking about this not too long ago, because I was reminded that ever since I was a child, probably 4 or 5 years old, I was always fascinated by these great looking machines, the airplanes, and the idea that they could take you to faraway places. I got to tell you that I grew up in a very small city, a very small country, Guatemala. And of course, we had a very small airport. But whenever a relative or a friend was either taking a trip or were coming back from a trip, my family made it a whole tour day that we would go to the airport hours ahead of the trip and just take on all of the sights and the sounds and the scenes of the airport as this magic portal by which people would go from one place to another place, sometimes very far away. So I remember distinctly this one particular day when my dad was taking a business trip, and we made it, again, a whole day's affair to go there hours before his scheduled flight, see him checking in his bag, getting his boarding pass, seeing him through immigrations, and then literally waiting until the airplane took off. And we would still wait in the terrace for a few more minutes just to make sure that the airplane was really off, And that image to me symbolizes what air travel was, like a possibility, like an opportunity. Now, I didn't want to be a pilot. I wasn't interested in working in air traffic control or in any other capacity. I just wanted to be able to be one of those passengers who was able to get on a seat and then, through the magic of air travel, be somewhere exotic, somewhere far, to some of these places that I could only watch in movies or television. So that's as early as I can remember. Now, my whole professional career track was going in another direction. I was actually getting a degree in social anthropology and history in a national university back there in Guatemala. But by some coincidence, by some opportunity, when I was 20, a job opening came about in a national airline. And I thought, well, what it would be to work for an airline and just be able to save enough money to be able to make a trip and just get that out of my system and then continue with my, university track. So what happened is that I did get the job and I started working back in 1986. That's how long it started. And I got to tell you, just like many people say, once you get the bug of aviation biting you, it never leaves you. It just became a passion for me to the point where I've never stopped ever since, working in the aviation industry, either in airlines or with airports or connected to industry bodies in learning and development. So it's been, a little bit more than 3 decades.
And it seems like you were kind of romanticizing that experience, at the very beginning, as you said, when you were a kid. Is there some sort of romance left, after that many years?
I think so, yes. As a matter of fact, I think, as you mentioned in your opening, because of what has happened to the entire world, to all of us during this year and a half of pandemic. I miss so much getting on an airplane and getting to somewhere else where I'm going to be meeting a group of people from an airline or an airport company or just a bunch of individuals that get together for an aviation related course and just be able to spend those 3, 4, 5 days with them in a foreign location, getting to know as much of their culture, as much of their setting at the same time that we're learning and we're getting to master some specific concept. I really miss that. I mean, it's been part of my life
Yeah.
almost every month for, as I said, the past 3 decades. So obviously, I'm waiting anxiously for normalcy to get back to the point where, again, I'm going to be called. It's going to be arranged that I can get on an airplane and get somewhere around the world and just start to meet people again. I love doing these virtual things. They have really been a tremendous advance, and I think they make things very easy for all of us to be able to work from home or to be able to take on meetings at different times of the day. But I really miss the face-to-face contact, and I'm looking forward to that. And air travel is just an amazing part of that. I still enjoy getting on an airplane. I still enjoy working out all the buttons on my seat. I still enjoy, for long trips, a good meal and a nice glass of wine. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And it's still, as you said, part of that initial romantic feeling of you get on this magical machine and within a few hours you are in another part of the world, just places that you would only imagine in your head or that you would see in a movie or a TV show.
Yeah, it's definitely like something fascinating. Like, I know some people might get used to it, but for some it's actually always very mesmerizing, kind of getting up in the air. But if we're talking about that romance, we can also mention, on the other spectrum, like, are there any challenges? Because you've obviously got a long career and, there are many things that happen in there and you had many assignments in different places. Is there anything that kind of stood out that was really tough or really challenging and it actually kind of made you even think maybe that, oh, this is actually really hard and not that enjoyable?
Absolutely. I can come up even with 3 or 4 examples. I can tell you, for example, when I was in my mid-20s, I was sent to Mexico City with a budget of approximately $2 million. And my task was to set up a ground handling company from scratch.
Ooh.
Now, at 26 years old, I had no experience setting up companies. I had no experience working in Mexico City. And I had no experience in the whole ground handling, atmosphere. I knew airport operations from being a customer service agent and a supervisor. So that was a very fascinating challenge that they would entrust so much, resources and manpower and trust that I could be able to get that job done. So that was something that happened so early in my career. I can tell you about projects where I was able to travel literally all over the world to 35 different locations to train local teams and how to improve customer service processes, but with the local knowledge of the local teams, as opposed to me from head office telling them, this is how you have to do it.
Yeah.
But if I have to be honest with you, Laura, the toughest challenge by far in my entire career was in August of 2008. I was the director of human resources at a airline that is no longer in service, used to be the second largest airline in Spain. And during that day, around 2 p.m., we unfortunately experienced a major accident with one of our aircraft. And it was the second worst aircraft accident of a commercial airline in the Spanish aviation history since the 70s. So this was a very, very, very delicate situation. It just so happened that I was not just the head of human resources, but on that particular week, I was the emergency director on duty. So it was my responsibility to activate our entire company's emergency response plan and system. And I also happened to be, by some other circumstances, the acting corporate communications director. So 3 in 1, I get to be the crisis leader. I was the official spokesperson for the media and for the families of the victims. And I also got to be the person who liaised with many of our partners and suppliers, the local authorities, in establishing everything that we could do for the families of the victims and the survivors. And it was a 10-day process that taught me so much about, human nature, humankind, the importance of being prepared for an event like this, the amazing resilience of our many hundreds of volunteers that were deployed to assist the families of the victims, my own interactions with particular family members of those who were lost in the accident, including members of our crew and our employees. So it was a very challenging, very tough assignment, but I was very well supported, very well surrounded by, again, hundreds, if not the entire company. So that was a very revealing experience. And I think that was probably the toughest assignment that I've ever had.
It sounds a bit scary now when you think about it.
Well, it could be if you did not prepare for it, if you did not invest in all of the resources that you need as an airline to be able to mobilize so many different work streams. But I gotta tell you, Laura, that because I was very much exposed to other accidents in previous parts of my career, not as a crisis director, but I was part of a special assistance team in a accident that took place in the US. And then I was a station manager also when another company's aircraft crashed into the airport where I was responsible for the operations for that other airline. So I was really very much experienced, unfortunately, in that area. So when I got to this other company, I really insisted with the senior management that we needed to invest, train people, prepare ourselves well through simulations and other learning activities. And so by the time that this happened, I think that all of us came to the job and the assignment and the tasks with a lot of confidence because we really had prepared. If you're not prepared, it's going to be much more challenging, and you may be doing a huge disservice to the victims, to their loved ones, and to the rest of your company. So I was actually quite pleased and satisfied that we got out of that terrible situation in a good position, according to my assessment. And that was, again, because of the preparation and the commitment that we had for such an event.
And you've already mentioned a couple of skills like confidence that are really important for someone working in aviation, especially in like circumstances like yours. Obviously, when we think about aviation, we think about airplanes, airports. I think about holidays, trips, flights, and stuff like that. But we tend to forget that people are also like a key asset actually in that industry.
Yes.
And, kind of working with, as you said, like people who are prepared for any kind of crisis or any kind of, misfortunate event is really good because it lets you thrive in that team as well. Because obviously when you're surrounded by good people, you kind of go upwards yourself. So what do you think are the most important characteristics for someone working in this industry, maybe even like in leadership roles as well?
Yeah, it's a great question, Laura. I've been also thinking about that because we're now in the 21st century. Technology has advanced so much also for the entire aviation, supply chain and industry. We have these amazing aircraft and the engines, and now very likely in the very short term, the fuels that are going to be allowing us to travel more, farther, and more efficient towards the environment. There have been amazing developments with digital transformation, digital distribution, the ability that in your phone, you could literally come up with your own travel experience. You can tap in to any airline, airport, travel agencies, applications, and you could customize your trip to the smallest details. That was something that was just a dream when I joined the aviation world back in the 80s and through the 90s, but now it's actually quite possible. So there is a lot that we have to be very thankful to technology for allowing us to expand and go deeper and richer into the travel experience. But you're very correct. At the end of the day, it's a people connecting people experience, I'm borrowing this idea from a very successful airline, but what you have to think about is that on any given day, on any given place in the world, wherever there is, an airplane with passengers going from point A to point B, for those individuals on that particular journey, that is like the most important thing for them on that particular day. They either have to get to a vacation spot, to an important meeting, a job interview, a family reunion, a wedding, maybe even a funeral or something like that, which becomes quite important that we deliver the safe, reliable, comfortable, well priced, well maintained aircraft and so on and so forth. Because for those individuals, that trip is going to be so important that if we have a delay, if we have a cancellation, if we have something unexpected, it's going to ruin a lot of their, expectations for that day. And that's where having people with great communication skills, great customer service skills, great empathy and listening skills and patience and the ability to solve problems very quickly and the ability to keep, the entire map of things that are happening very quickly and very, dynamically, because you have to interact not just with the customers and the passengers themselves, but also with the airport, the authorities, the companies that service your aircraft, maybe other suppliers and partners that you need to be arranging for alternative transportation or accommodation. So it really becomes a very important people service mindset that you need to have in order to succeed. And by the way, we're talking also the way that our pilots and our cabin crew and our aircraft technicians have to also consider that customer service perspective to do their jobs in a way that they can get the passenger again to their expected destination on time, as comfortably and as safely as possible. And with the added complexities of COVID, I guess we have made it even a more people-centered business than ever. I'm really actually quite optimistic that one of the silver linings that we're going to see out of the pandemic is going to be both from a standpoint of delivering products and services more customer-centric, and also from the standpoint of organizations where we have to mobilize hundreds, if not thousands of people. For a typical aircraft departure, you need to mobilize sometimes as many as 100 individuals, and we're doing this, on a very frequent basis. We have thousands and thousands of planes taking off even as we speak on each day. So we're talking about mobilizing literally millions of people. So I'm also very optimistic that this pandemic is going to make us more people employee centric, because we need to take care of our people so that they can take care of their customers. And that is going to be something that I'm looking forward to seeing in the coming months, that it becomes really like a reacquainted experience. I guess for some time, we took aviation and taking airplane trips for granted, almost like taking a bus or taking a taxi. But I think, again, all of us are going to appreciate, again, that human contact, that smile, that ability for people to take us safely on a journey to accomplish something that for us, that's the most important thing that we have to accomplish on that particular day.
And I guess to kind of get there where we just talked about, with all the people kind of returning back, another important thing is, of course, teaching and then learning and then, kind of expanding your knowledge and then your skills. Obviously, here at Aeroclass, what we offer is this opportunity for aviation specialists to learn anywhere at any time at their own pace, and you're one of our lectors. But first of all, I want to kind of get into this e-learning idea, because obviously it's not that new, but in aviation, and it's relatively new, I guess. And there's still many ways to improve. So what do you think is currently missing in the supply of e-learning for aviation specialists?
I think the focused value proposition of a platform like Aeroclass is quite timely and quite necessary and quite exciting, in my opinion, because, as you say, there are many different ways to learn. There are many very different ways to acquire knowledge and content. And I think what we have been missing in the aviation industry is a platform that is created by aviation professionals for aviation professionals, and to create a real, exciting, and very active community of people who tell us, we want to learn more about this. What can you give us in return? That would be fun, engaging, practical, hands-on. And I think this is a space that you guys are claiming, in which I'm very happy to be part of. So I think just the ability for people to be able to customize their learning experience, as I was describing, customizing the travel experience,
Yeah.
is something that I think Aeroclass is on its way to deliver. And I'm looking forward to seeing the, participants' reactions and their feedback when we start rolling out these courses in the coming months. So I think that's something that I'm looking forward to experiencing together with you guys.
And is this why you joined Aeroclass then? That kind of, this whole vision that you believe in?
Absolutely. I think that learning is an infinite journey. When I joined my first job, I gotta tell you, it wasn't the most pleasant experience from a new hire standpoint, because literally on my first day, on my first shift, on my first hour, what I was told from my supervisor is, go stand next to one of the more senior people and learn as much as you can, right?
Classic approach.
Yeah, well, these were other times. Now, a few months later, we learned that we needed to recruit a few more people because we just were expanding our flight offers. So they decided to hire a new batch of new people. By then, I was already like 6 months with the company, so I was already considered to be more like a senior. And I came to my boss and I said, it would be great if when we hire this new group of people, if we could give them some kind of like an orientation training. I didn't call it like that because I didn't even know that term existed, but I explained to that person how great it would be that these people, before they were released to the check-in counter, the boarding gates, and the baggage service offices, that they could get a few days of understanding, what does our company stand for? What are the values and the vision and the purpose of our company? What's its history? How are we set up and organized? What is their job description? And then go into the more technical things, but always connecting them to, we're here because we have a purpose, which is to serve the passengers. And so he looked at me with this expression like, well, if you believe so much in that, go ahead and do it. I'll give you a week off so that you can prepare for it. And then I'll give you another week for you to take these people on that orientation. And so that was my first experience. I had no knowledge on how to design courses or how to teach, to be honest. But I just believed so much that that would be such a valuable thing to do for these people, as opposed to just throwing them to, sink or swim, as they say. And it turned out to be a match made in heaven, because I have been connected to learning and development ever since. 6 months after I was hired on my first job, up to this last day of my life, in which I am still delivering and developing content for people in the aviation world. So, of course, when Aeroclass contacted me to see if I would be interested in joining their effort, I thought, absolutely, I want to be able to be in as many channels as possible, because I think that's how we operate in today's world, by being able to be available in any way, always, to all people. And I think that the opportunity that I'm being provided by Aeroclass is a fantastic one that I didn't want to give up.
That's great to hear. And I was going to ask you, how you kind of got into teaching, but you just explained that. But then another thing that I am curious about, and I'm sure our viewers are too, were you ever kind of thinking that maybe, this is not exactly what you want to do? Maybe you want to go more into like a senior role, with an executive role or anything like that. Basically, are there any regrets?
No regrets, but you're right that when I was a young customer service agent, I always thought, wow, it would be so cool to one day become a supervisor. And then once you became a supervisor, you thought, okay, I'm looking at my boss, the station manager, wearing a nice suit and being able to command such authority and have so much influence with the other airline managers. So maybe I want to be a station manager. So eventually I did become as many of those roles that I was looking forward to, I was able to fulfill them. To be honest with you, there was a point in my mid 40s where the next level was to either become a general manager or a chief executive officer. I did become a chief people officer, so it was a C-suite level position in a very substantial company back in the last, corporate job that I had. But then I realized that what really was connecting me to coming to work every day and to being able to feel fulfilled and satisfied was that I had accumulated so much knowledge and experience that I just felt that I needed to share that in some way. And if you're in a key executive position, well, you have your limitations to do that, because while your job is to develop other people and to impart your knowledge and your experience through coaching or mentoring, it's very limited the time that you have allocated to do that, as opposed to just being a full-time partner for people who want to get better at something. So I decided to go into my own personal journey back in 2010. And a couple of years after that, I became a leadership effectiveness coach, consultant, and corporate trainer. And that's been perhaps the most clear purpose that I've had in my entire career, because I believe that leadership is such an integral part of any successful organization. And leadership, if it's done properly, in the right manner, with the right values, behaviors, and attitudes, can create so much positive energy around the organization, to the point where the organization is also, by its own culture, feeding off and from the leadership style. And it becomes really a nice system that we can observe in only a very limited number of organizations. There are not too many examples of incredibly successful companies. For example, in the airline world, we have over 200 airlines that are probably registered under ICAO and IATA to be proper airlines to transport passengers, baggage, and cargo. Now, out of those 200 airlines, or maybe even more, I can tell you that there's only a handful of airlines that have been successful for decades after decades, and that have a very specific differentiating aspect to them, and it's their culture, And it is that they have leaders who recognize that that culture is really what drives the success of that company, and those leaders are in service of the culture. So when you get that combination of a service leadership style and a culture which is centered on individuals and the people that we take care of so that they can take care of our customers, you really have an amazing organization. And again, there's only a handful of those. So after studying such organizations, I came to the conclusion that what you can influence in individuals, teams, and organizations is the way they understand and they can exhibit and demonstrate as a leadership style. So that's been really my core passion for the past 12 years. And doing training for the aviation community in a variety of subjects, such as the one that we're going to talk about, the one that brings us together here today, how to be a more effective communicator in your leadership role, is something that just makes me feel so energized and so happy. So I can really tell you very honestly that I'm not complaining, or I'm not regretting not having become a CEO or a big, chief executive at some other organization, because this really is what makes me very fulfilled and happy.
Well, that's great as well. I think, seeing people passionate about what they're doing is also kind of giving you much more confidence, and kind of believing what they're saying, because they actually believe they live by it. And if anyone who's watching right now is going, oh man, I don't have this culture in my company. So I've got some good news. Hector at Aeroclass has a course, and I'm gonna try not to mess it up. I think it's called Leaders and Effective Communicators, 5 Skills and 3 Mandates to Achieve Excellence. Yes.
Correct.
There you go. So, Hector, can you please just introduce your course, tell our viewers what they can expect, what they can take away from it, maybe just give a little bit of a taster. We'll do that obviously afterwards, but just kind of, give your best pitch.
Thank you, Laura. Indeed, as I was saying, I strongly believe that leadership and the culture within the organization are two driving forces that sometimes are in tension, sometimes they are in cooperation, sometimes they are far apart, and sometimes they are really well integrated. And what makes those two driving forces either connect or not connect, be successful or not be successful, at the end of the day, if you think about it, is the way that we communicate. Yeah. Communication is like the lifeblood that makes all of those interactions happen, either in a very positive and constructive way or in a way in which we're not reaching our purpose and we're not delivering our promises to our customers. So what this course really tries to do is to give you a perspective of how communication is such a core skill for anyone who is in a position to lead a team, be a supervisor, a manager of a business unit, a director of an entire organization, or senior executive roles. Anytime that you are involved and responsible for people and teams, communication is going to be your go-to skill, your go-to capability to make people more engaged, more fulfilled, more motivated, or to correct whenever those aspects are not delivering what they are intending to deliver, be it productivity, be it customer satisfaction, be it more sales, be more on-time departures, you name whatever indicator you are responsible for with your team. There are some ways that we reveal in this course that you can practice, and these are very practical hands-on skills. We could have chosen any of the many hundreds of communication skills, but we really want to give people a practical hands-off set of 5 skills. I can basically tell you, for example, active listening, being prepared, showing empathy, how to manage your nonverbal communication skills, and a very effective checklist of 7 C's. I will let people, I'm not going to spoil that particular one and let them find out for themselves when they join us in the course. But what's also important about this is that if you think about the role of a supervisor, a manager, a senior executive, or a company director, across that different scale of authority and responsibility, there's always 3 fundamental mandates that they are asked by their stakeholders to deliver. One is results. You always want your people to deliver the intended results. Now, that could be a whole host of indicators, but what we are showing in our course is that leaders have a mandate to create the environment that makes people to show up for work with clear instructions, with precise information, with clear job descriptions that are connected to the company's vision, missions, and goals. And so long as you create that environment, people will perform like a high performance sports team. They will always go for the extra mile, and they will do it with joy and satisfaction because they see how their individual contributions roll into the larger corporate purpose. The second mandate that leaders and managers are required to demonstrate and exhibit on a constant basis is to energize and mobilize and engage their people and their teams into doing those things that we call jobs. Now, we are specifically telling our participants that within the whole communication framework, there is a very exciting skill or tool that we're calling storytelling. Now, how can you say certain things that may contain some boring information about a corporate literature, but to do it in a way in which people can actually feel more engaged by listening to you, identifying a protagonist or an antagonist or a conflict that needs to be resolved? There are many examples on a daily basis that happen in any of the related aviation industry work units, which I'm sure an effective leader as a communicator can spin into an engaging and exciting story. We're all drawn to stories for millennia. So leaders should be able to tell compelling stories to make people feel engaged and passionate in what they do. And the last mandate that we are responsible for as leaders and managers is to help our individual and team members become better at what they do, grow professionally, become fulfilled individuals, not just in their professional lives, but in their lives in general. And the way we do that is by giving them effective feedback. That is a mandate that I think that our participants are going to really enjoy, because when you learn how to deliver effective feedback, you're literally giving that individual a gift, the gift for improvement, the gift for correcting something that needs to be addressed, and the gift of sustaining a behavior or an action that is delivering very good results. So that's in essence what we have put together, with a lot of interesting examples and some of our own stories. So I'm looking forward to people to join us in this course, and more, even looking forward to getting their feedback and their own comments to see how we can give them more effective support.
Which aviation specialist do you think this course is most suitable for?
Well, Laura, here's the great thing. It could be for anybody who has either the desire to become a leader or a manager, or somebody who's in that position already, but just wants to be able to get better, more proficient at these specific skills and mandates. To be honest with you, it would be anybody who's connected to a team, or even a small team of one person that would already entitle you to be able to act as an effective leader and communicator. So I would say the invitation is extremely wide open to anybody, again, with a responsibility for individuals and teams, critical business processes, and it is from a team leader position all the way to the executive suite.
I see. So let's kind of leave this decision, for our viewers. They can definitely check that out. But let's, as we mentioned before in the very beginning, we're going to talk a bit more about that communication and leadership, and we kind of we'll take some specific examples, especially during these times, so COVID. So first of all, I want to kind of establish the level of crisis we're currently facing. So on a scale from just a simple 2-hour delay because, due to rotation, it just didn't happen on time, to, as you mentioned, a fatal aircraft accident. Where is COVID in this scale?
Well, Laura, unfortunately, COVID has been perhaps the largest, deepest, most tough crisis that the industry has had to face in its entire modern history. Now, we saw, similar levels of crisis, for example, through the Gulf Wars. We saw that through 9/11, and we saw that through the financial crisis as examples. But never did we have such an event where the entire planet had to shut down, and the entire industry, except for a few, humanitarian flights and flights to transport critical material, virtually everything was shut down. Now that means that you're putting millions of people temporarily out of their employment, and that you are grounding literally tens of thousands of aircraft, and you are shutting down critical infrastructure such as airports and all of the ancillary facilities. So we never experienced that before in our lifetime. Okay, so I have to say it probably is going to be ranked as the top, if not one of the more critical crisis events that we have faced. Now, what's interesting about this whole phenomenon of COVID is that if you just go back to 6 months ago, there were still some uncertainty levels regarding the restarting of the industry, or the restarting of any industry for that matter, or how quickly we were going to get back to normal. And then all of a sudden, because of the vaccination efforts, we saw a more accelerated restart than most people expected. Now, it's still a little bit with the variants that we're seeing in the news. We may still get, like a one step forward, two steps backward
Yes.
situation for a while. But it's clear that the trend is that we are going to be able to recover quite a bit of our substantial aviation industry probably within the next 6 months. Certainly within the next year, I think it's going to be looking much closer to what it was before COVID. And that's actually quite good, because some of the initial expectations or forecasts said, well, it's going to take 2 or 3 years to recover. I think it's going to take a little bit sooner to recover, and that's great news. But notwithstanding that optimistic view, I think that we have to recognize again that as we are bringing literally millions of people back to their workplaces under circumstances that still have a very critical health component to it, we need to be extremely focused on the people. We need to be very people-centered, people-focused, and we really need to take care of our employees to the extent that they need to feel that they are in a safe environment, that they are protected, and that they can deliver the products and the services that our customers are expecting without any compromise to their own safety and security. So I think that's going to be really a critical mandate for leaders, managers, supervisors, and people all over the world, that we need to recognize that we need that sense of safety and security amongst our colleagues and our employees to be able to move forward and get this whole COVID thing out of the way and make it a thing of the past.
Yeah.
That's what I'm really hoping for.
Yeah.
And I'm really hopeful also that with our small contribution, like a course on leadership communication, that will help this entire effort of bringing us back to normal. But again, with a people-focused mindset, because I think that has been the big realization for many people in our industry, that we need to take care of our staff, our employees, our colleagues, so that they can do their jobs without any other preoccupations.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Talking about COVID, we usually talk about the beginning of it, how it shut down, how it changed the world as we know it. But we rarely talk about what's next. How are we gonna, come back to normal? Because it kind of seems very wonderful, in our heads. But even for us, like for me personally, coming back to my office was a bit of a tough cookie, because I'm not too sure. I mean, I'm vaccinated, but maybe some people aren't, and all those variations are out there. So it's kind of difficult, and I guess for aviation, it's even more, because not only do you have to deal with your people, with your employees, you have to deal with actual travelers. And, some people have to travel, they don't have a choice, and maybe they're scared. They'd rather just stay at home, kind of with doors closed. So I guess I want to know, I guess, all the companies have their different challenges. And obviously, as you mentioned yourself, coming back to our jobs is a challenge on itself. But what for like airports? How are they going to deal with this? As I said, there are travelers, how they can kind of improve the experience, make them, a bit more kind of relaxed traveling again?
Well, that's a great question, Laura. Look, I think that from an airport perspective, the way that most modern airports are designed anyway, they are very spacious, they have very high ceilings, they have a lot of light and air circulation. So I think that the design of airports, if you are careful about the way that you manage passenger flow, they really are almost like an ideal infrastructure to go through if you need to travel. Because the way that airports are designed, and with all of the improvements that we have been made aware of through the COVID public health measures and the specific measures with filters and sanitizing surfaces. And, I've seen robots that go with ultraviolet lights to eliminate any viral presence in all of the facilities. So there's a lot of technology that was put together very quickly and very effectively to ensure that airports are actually a a very safe space, much safer than I think most people feel. I myself took some flights a couple of months ago, and I can tell you that my experience was that it was okay. I did not feel threatened. I did not feel unsafe. And I could see that everybody from the people at the airport ticket counters, the boarding gates, the cabin crew, even the pilots were making an extra effort to make people feel reassured through announcements, through providing us with materials to clean our hands and to dispose of anything, making sure that everybody was wearing the proper masks. And so I think that that part of the experience is already something that is under our belt. We have traveled, we have experienced it, and we have seen that it's okay. It feels almost normal, okay? But I go back to the idea that we need to create a mindset within the people that are in the front line. And so frontline employees, which are your pilots, your cabin crew, all of your airport service personnel, as well as the people who are in the ramp, loading, offloading, cleaning the aircraft, servicing the aircraft, fueling the aircraft, and everybody who's connected through the airport experience, like your air traffic controllers and your ramp controllers, and everybody who's really contained within that world. We just need to make them feel safe and reassured and supported. And so one way that we can do that using our communication course structure, for example, is by listening to people. We ask them, what will make you feel better if you need to come to work? What will make you feel safe? What will make you feel reassured? What can we do to make you feel, again, excited and connected to your daily purpose, which is to provide excellent customer service and an excellent travel experience for our passengers? So if we listen to what people need to tell us, we may be able to give them those solutions. Another thing, for example, that I was thinking about is the way that some companies are going to the extent of using their health measures as a marketing value proposition. So I was watching this video from a Middle East airline, and they're basically putting this claim: 100% of our crews are vaccinated, you know? So that's something that you would not have even thought about in previous pandemics. You know, like when we had SARS and MERS and Ebola, nobody was advertising, we have people that are vaccinated. But now, because this pandemic is of such a global reach and has done so much damage to people, you know, this is a clear message to somebody who needs to travel. And when they're looking at different companies, you may be persuaded that by this company because they went through the effort of protecting their entire cabin crew staff to be able to provide services to you in the safest manner that we know, which is the vaccine, you know? And I think that's really an interesting thing that has been developed and that we're going to see more and more.
Yeah.
But again, I think that I am very optimistic. And again, I hope that we are able to manage all these variants as they come up with the existing therapeutics or with new medicine that may become available. But the important thing is that I see that the trend is for us to move on, move forward, get on with our lives. And I myself, as a passenger, I'm looking forward to the time that I can go to some of my favorite destinations, to experience some of my, favorite restaurants and beaches and museums. And this is the same message that I hear from my family and my friends and my colleagues. We all want to get back to the road. So I think it's keeping that positive mindset is also very important at this time.
And I think it's especially crucial to kind of keep that positive attitude, because for people coming back to their works, especially those working in aviation, let's say an airport, it's a lot of unknown territory for them as well, because they don't know what's going to happen. This might come back. This might still, kind of be a slow kind of comeback. And I guess for them, it's also really important to get that feedback from their, leaders, to understand that, everything's going, in a good way and everything's going to be okay. So I just wanted to ask, you mentioned yourself that feedback is a very important thing. how do you think, leaders are dealing with this situation right now? Do you think they can improve something in their kind of feedback delivery to reassure those people that, like, I know it's overwhelming, but we're gonna get back to normal?
Yeah, I think that leaders have had a really tough time in any capacity for any industry at any level, whether it's your local government, whether it's people who own and manage restaurants, people who are connected to other aspects of travel, such as hotel companies and so on and so forth. So I think that anybody who's been in a leadership position for the past 15 months has had a really tough time. But that's why being a leader is also an important responsibility, because we expect our leaders to be people who are resilient, who can come back even stronger from crisis events, people that manage their different aspects through emotional intelligence in a way in which they can compartmentalize the tasks and the priorities together with the emotional impact of what we have been living through. So while I think that leaders have had a tough time, I think that most leaders had to go into this knowing that it was expected of them to be able to perform at that level. Now, having said that, and this is something that I've always been a believer, I think that more now than ever, because of the examples that you're describing, a person who comes to the airport or to an airline or to a fueling facility or to a maintenance a hangar or to a simulator company, anybody who is going to be coming back to work physically and where you have to interact with other human beings and where your head is going to be spinning about the risks of contracting this disease, okay? That's the clear issue that we need to deal with. I've always believed that anybody who is in a capacity of a supervisor, a manager, or a leader has to spend 80% of their time as close to their teams as possible. Now, when I put that forward in my coaching or consulting or training engagements, those who are leaders and managers always push back to me. Oh, I'm too busy. We got other priorities. I have a lot of meetings to attend. There are so many things that I have to be involved in. I don't have the time to spend 80% of my agenda with my teams. It's just not possible. Well, if there was ever a time where you had to reshuffle your calendar and you had to reprioritize, how are you going to spend most of your time, if not all of your time? It's now with this whole situation where you need to be connected to your team as close as possible. Virtual meetings and virtual, gatherings are a big step forward, and they're going to help a lot, especially when you cannot be everywhere at all times, right? And you need to maybe have a meeting with people from another part of the world. But to the extent that you want to inspire and engage and create this sense of purpose again with all of your people, they need to see you where they are going to be also dealing with their own issues. So if they see you and they see you taking an interest about what is it that they are concerned about, what is it that they are afraid of, what is it that they can suggest you to do to create a better workspace, to create a better feeling of safety and security, then those leaders are going to be so much more appreciated, and they're also going to be much more effective because there's no substitute for being connected to your team. That's absolutely my belief. And again, I'm a big believer and I'm a big person who enjoys technology in all ways. But when it comes to a delicate period like the one we're describing, and we're dealing with human beings who need to take care of other human beings, your role and your time has to be spent as close as possible with them. That's really something that I absolutely believe in.
I think you wrapped it up so nicely right here. I think it's the best kind of promotion for your course. And I'm sure, people who are watching are interested, and they can find your course at our website. And I think this is our time. I do believe we could talk about this much longer, and we might in the future. But for now, that's a wrap. So I really, really appreciate your time, Hector. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Oh, absolutely, Laura. It's been a tremendous conversation. I appreciate you so much with your questions and your interest. And I'm also looking forward to engaging with our participants in the short future that we have to roll these courses out. So I want to thank you again and everybody at Aeroclass for inviting me on this journey, and looking forward to meeting our many thousands of participants over the next months, and looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, visit our website, aeroclass.org, to learn more about the courses available. And for now, that's a wrap. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy it. Bye-bye.